For the next round, I'm going to repeat the same type of pattern that I put in here, where it stops at the line. I'm going to start this differently to the one before. What I'm going to do is audition my template and stitches and find out where this crossover point is, approximately. It's going to be a couple of stitches sewn. I'll just mark it with a pencil here. I'm going to actually sew a couple of stitches into here, not that far, but that's just a couple of stitches. So when I start sewing that one, I'll have my tails brought to the top. I will be able to just easily pull out 2 or 3 stitches when I finish, when I've got that final crossover on, and bring it back to this line here, and it will be sewn continuously. So to do that, line up the template in the correct position. I've moved this one out to 13.5. I'm now going to turn the template back the other way and see where it hits the foot. So I know that my foot is inside that position, and that's just going to give me a couple of stitches so that I can bring those stitches back and have it come into the right place. So I'm going to sew from here, do what we did before, which is just working around line to line. We have our back track at this end. When we get to here, we can either backtrack freehand or use the template. If I turn the template now to get me to the next line, I'm going to be backtracking up to there. So we could backtrack to that position, but remember this pattern is alternating around what we sewed the first time, and there is a difference of where we're going to be stopping, which is going to alter where that backtrack is. I'm probably showing you some more advanced techniques for using our artisan curves, but it does give you a good idea of what you can do with this template. So we're rotating, and I've only got a couple of stitches to go. I've sewn in the threads here. I'm just going to bring these stitches up. So I'm just taking my top thread and giving a little tug. It makes the bobbin thread come up so I can bring it through. I only have 2 stitches here to do. Bring that bobbin thread up. And now, one more and I'm on that line. My bobbin thread's up and I can sew my tails in. So I will just use my self-threading needle, sew those tails in, and we've got stitching that begins and ends on a line where we had no real starting point to begin with. Sewing tails in is really easy. It's just tying a knot about 1/2 inch from the beginning, from the last stitch, pulling, threading through, going through the batting, giving a little pull, and cut the ends off, and you can't tell where I began on that round, even though I started in an unusual place. For the next round, I'm going to do an echo, but I'm not going to echo with a 1/4 inch all the way round. What I'm going to do is use the same template. So we can echo using the same template or step it up by another size. To have it echo and come around like the one we did in here, we have to step up the size, because if we stay at the same size, when we move it up, our template narrows where it comes in. This one I'm going to do with a 1/2 inch, so we're going to move to 14.5. I've already got my threads up, and I'm just going to sew with this one from stitch line to stitch line. So I'll sew all the way around to here, then I'm going to backtrack in this part here and do the next one. So when I get to the end of this one, I need to backtrack across these stitches here, and it's only a very small backtrack, and then I'll backtrack up. So if I move the template around, I can see how far I've got to backtrack up, which is only 2 stitches, and do the next one. And what this creates is a cross hatch in there. I'll sew the next one, and then I'll just move this around so you can see what this pattern is doing. I want to show you as many different techniques for using the artisan curves on this sample. It gives you an idea of what we can do. So I'll stop here. I'll take the template away. I will leave the needle down, because leaving the needle down, it stays where I want to be to keep going. Turn this around, knock over my thread stand. So this is the one we've just sewn. You can see that I have a little pattern that's developing into a crosshatch. The next round I'll move out another 1/2 inch again, and that cross hatch will be more accentuated. So we'll just finish this round. We're finishing this last rotation of this round, and I'm just going to go as we did before. It's our last crossover here. I'm now going to change the template position again. So I'm going to keep the same template. I'm going to move it up a 1/2 inch again. So I've gone from 14.5 to 15.5. I'm just going to travel a very tiny amount around to where our beginning stitch will go in, which is going down, and now we're going up again. And this one is going to loop over the top. If we had put a 3-inch circle, our cross hatching would be much more defined. So we're going to stop here. We're going to travel down, up one, probably only a stitch in each direction, turn the template, and we're going to come up and sew the next one. So you can use one template repeatedly. Just by moving it up, we change its position and we create more pattern. And I'll do this one, and then I'm going to do the same thing again and move it up to the next position up. With the artisan curves, we can start at the number that it starts at. If it's a tiny one, we're going to be starting at a 2 or a 3 or a 4. On this size, we're starting at 6. But all of them go out to 18 inches. We can use these to do 18-inch blocks, which is what I'm doing, or we can stop at 12 inches or 8 inches. We can do a small design and put it into a 4-inch block if that's what our template does allow us to do. So there, it's a very versatile template, and we just travel down again. Just a couple of stitches. Make sure we're in line. We're always checking back with our reference lines. Okay, we're finishing the last one on this round, and what I'm going to do when I finish this round is step it out 1 inch. So I'm going to have a larger spacing here. So to do that, I'm going from 15.5 to 17.5. When I do that, you can see that I'm not in correct position. I'm going to just have to travel up to the edge again till I get to where my template lines up. And now I can do this one. So each round can continue from the one before, give you another pattern, increase the usage of one template. We do have circles from 1/4 inch to 3 inches, so we can do tiny little baby circles. What we're going to do here is travel down and back around and line up again. So I'm just going to move the template away from the edge, come down on my stitching line, come back up on my stitching line, line my template up again when I'm in the right position, go round. We're at 17.5 inches. 17.5 inches means it measures 17.5 inches across the diameter of the circle, and that's to our stitching line, not our template. These blocks that I've been sewing to do my testing, to do our photos that we've shown up on Facebook, and to do the videos, well, there will be more. These will all be cut down to an 18-inch block, 18.5 inches with seam allowance, and I will sew those into a quilt as you go quilt. So we're back on our line again. This is the last rotation for this round, and because we're at 17.5 inches on this one, I only have one more step to go, which brings me to 18 inches. So what I'm going to do is I will actually travel around here to the next one. That way I have the same weight of thread on all of these. I've got the double row of stitching because I travelled on the others. So I want to put that double row of stitching back in. It will give me a third row here because the first one was double stitch. But that shows better than having one stitch and two. So now we've got one left to go to get us to 18. I'm going to bring that in to here, do my 18, which means I'm doing the same as this, but I want to put a second one coming back in here, so that I'm going to have the 18 looping all the way round. So we'll get the first one in and then I'll show you how we get the next one. So we're just going to travel up here a couple of stitches until we get our reference line in place. Because we've gone further out, our line being the same circle, we're going to travel up there. So we'll sew this one and come down to where it meets our circle. But I want to bring this circle so that we're going to create an 18-inch edge all the way around. So we come into here, touch that line there. We're going to want to bring this up. We don't have a reference line in here to go to. What we do have is a spacing between here. Sometimes these will line up, and when they line up we can use those as reference lines. So we're going to look in here and see if there's anything that does line us up to a reference being in the centre. And what it is where these two cross over. So if we use the line that runs up the centre of the tool and we align it with the crossover point, we've just created a new reference line without having to draw it. So what I'm going to do is sew back up to here, put this one in here. It's going to cross over here. So when I come up this way, I'm going to do a little backtrack across here, and that way I'm going to have that crosshatching appearing. So we'll come up here. We're just going to travel back across here, stop at the line, bring this one around. we're going to sew over to the line. When we get to that line, we're going to stop on the line. We know we're going to backtrack a tiny bit, so we're going to bring the template into place here. We're going to sew up that line, back down this line. We're now going to come across, and we're going to go back to our stitch line from the previous round. So there's a lot of ways that we can move and change and do different things with the templates, and a lot of ways we can make the template work in our favour. So remember, when we got to here, we had to backtrack up this one. So we're going to come back up, and we're lining up, not with this reference line, but we're lining up with that little crosshair there. So we're back lined up with our crosshair. And now we're going to do the backtrack there, come around, sew back to the line, bring our template around. We're now working with this line again, backtrack up, backtrack around, and that's our pattern formed. Going to turn the template, lining it up with that little crosshatch in there, stitch till we get to the ruler, come back, go the other way, and stitch to the line. I'll just go over how I created this pattern again. We went from line to line. We're going to backtrack, and we backtrack up approximately where we want to get to. We're going to turn the template, line up the center line with the crosshatch in the pattern that was repeated 3 rounds back, travel to touch the template with the edge of the foot. We're going to sew this direction, stop at the line, go around. When we get to the line, we're going to stop at the line, we're going to come back a couple of stitches, line our template up with our reference line, and then we're going to sew around, going down, stop at the line, come back, all the way around until we get back to the line, stop at the line, we're going to come back, turn the template so we're lining up our centre line with the crosshatch that we made, travel up till we touch the template, come around, we're going to sew backwards, sew forwards, and we're going to come back, cross over here, we're going to stop at the line. I'm going to do 1 extra line in there to make it so it's an even number of stitches, and that round is now complete. So we'll bring our threads up, we'll sew our tails in, and we'll have a look at what the block looks like finished. I've sewn all the way to the 18-inch mark. When I pulled it out and had a look at it, I decided I'd like some more in the centre. So I'm putting a little circle in the middle, which is a 1/2 inch circle, and I've got it located on number 2 pinhole, and when I go round, these little circles are actually going to just touch each other. So I've checked to make sure that I have that happening, but to make them go round and continue round and just touch each other, I actually have to double stitch the top half or the bottom half of that circle. Now I'm going to turn the template, make sure I'm lined up. So I might need another stitch in here like we did before. Get it so that my template is aligned with my reference line, and do my next little circle. So my little circles are going to work their way around and be a continuous line of circles and just touch each other. And this will fill in that centre nicely. If I get to the outside and decide I want to fill in a bit more in the middle, you can always go back and do it. If I had gone around and decided to put circles, these little circles, because I like these, they're cute, I could put those into here or here. I can always go back in there. I can either sew them as individual circles, or I can do them where I backtrack across one of the patterns that's previously been sewn. Once I've done these little circles, I'm probably going to put another row that brings these two together. I could leave it so that I have this little floating circle, and the circles can always float. It's just getting that little extra stitch to bring us down so that we can relocate that crosshair line. So we've now completed a little row of circles here. I'm just going to stitch there, and we'll bring our threads up again. This is our finished block, all quilted. What I didn't show you is in my preparation. Normally we start with a layer on the top, layer of backing on the back and batting in the middle. But what I've done here is placed two other layers inside my quilt sandwich. I have treated the layers with visor flicks, so there's visor flicks on each of these layers. What we're going to do is a new technique which we call template quilt. And what it is using a template to quilt and create an applique pattern at the same time. It's a raw edge technique, so we need some way of stabilizing our fabric edges. So there are two ways of doing it. One is to use the visor flicks on the fabric and then we'll iron it again after we finish cutting away, or to put fray stop around the pieces that we're going to cut off. So we just run a very thin line of the fray stop around our stitches. That will prevent it from fraying, which makes raw edge applique a lot stronger. So what we're going to do is decide on these pieces what pieces we want to keep and what we want to see come from behind. We're going to cut away the top surface, and we're going to cut to about 2 to 3 mil from our stitch line. We've got our layer of white, a purple and a black there. We can take out just the white, which is what I'll do first, and when we do this, what we're going to do is find the inside of that first layer. So we need to be able to cut into there carefully. Now to do this, having a nice very sharp pair of scissors makes life really easy. A pair of scissors with a really sharp point makes it easier than a pair of scissors that doesn't have that sharp point. I'm going to cut away here, and I'm just showing you a couple of different scissors that we have, and we're going to cut to about 3 mil, 2 to 3 mil from the stitch line, and we're going to expose the fabric underneath. And I will cut this away off camera because you really don't need to watch me cut away fabric. But you can see that there is that layer of fabric hiding underneath. So we'll stop there and I'll cut that away and show you. With template quilt, what we will do is cut away the layers. So I've cut away the first layer of cream here, and the exposes the purple. Here I've cut away the cream and the purple, so we're now exposing the black. This one I'm going to leave with purple and work my way around alternating the colours. I could take it to black all the way around. It's a way of creating applique and quilting in one movement, and you can do this with our Artisan Curve Templates. You can also do it with our wreaths. You can do it with many of our templates. If you can create an enclosed space, you can then cut that away to expose something. But remember, with raw edge applique, we need some way of helping to stabilise these edges. So you have the two choices. One is to put visor flicks on the back, and the other is to use a fray stopper. And I'll keep going this, and we'll show you it again when it's finished, and maybe do a couple of snaps in between as it grows and show how you can change the look of it.